is that now, well, look, we're coming off a weekend. This is the second week of all our self-quarantines, right? Jason Smith, Doug Gottlieb in for Dan and the Danettes today. And what all the networks have been defaulting to broadcast are, hey, here we're going to show you some classic games. Right, that's kind of what we're getting. Here, we're going to get here's the 2012 Final Four. Here is the 2016 Women's Final Four game. Here is, Fox is putting on Super Bowls now every Sunday for the next month from the past 15 or 20 years. And it's like we're defaulting to classic games, right? Let's put on to get classic games on. And I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like that's not quite the pulse of us right now in society. I don't mean just because of our self-quarantine with coronavirus. It's more that any of these games, I can see highlights of. I can watch them. If I want to see the final shot made in the 2014 national championship game, I can go look at that. I can go see Chris Jenkins' shot if I want to anytime. I can go see this whole game if I want to anytime. But I'm not going crazy going to watch the old games that are on, because a lot of them I can see anytime. Like, I feel like if you really want to show me old games, like give me a broadcast like the 1974 Super Bowl. Let me see Super Bowl V. Let me see it in its entirety, what the broadcast was like and how big the players were and what the whole flow of the game was like. And
Super Bowl V?
Give me random games. Give me a random game from 1974. Give me a random NBA game from 1967.
Thank God you're not programming networks.
That's something I would like to go see. I would like to see.
I'm just, Jason, I love you. I do not. Normally you do a great job of speaking for the everyman. There's no statistical. I'd be interested to see how many people watch these games. It feels like people are watching the old games, and it's a little bit like watching the Will Ferrell movies. When I was at the other place, I'll never forget. Will Ferrell was, I think it was when Semi-Pro first came out, and he was doing Sports Center. He was doing the whole car wash. And it was on a Saturday or a Sunday morning. I think it was Sunday morning he came in to do early Sports Center. And me and Tom Brennan were working together. This is the Vermont coach.
Yeah.
And
don't bring up his name ever again.
And so TB and I, we go in, and there used to be one kind of little tiny green room there. And there was never anything free, no free food. And this thing had food, granted, cafeteria food, but it was food out the wazoo. Clearly was not for us. So we walk in there, we're not touching anything, and these guys come in. They couldn't have been more enjoyable. It's Will and all of his guys. And so I said, hey, can I ask you a question? He's like, they're joking. They're like, you only get one question. So I said, Will, how come your movies are better the second, the third, the fourth time you see them? And they all started laughing. And they're like, that's a good question. He's like, the answer, we call it layering. I go, what's layering? It's like, well, layering is we just throw everything we can at each scene. We shoot it a bunch of different times, just try and make each other laugh, whatever. The first time you're watching a movie, you're watching the movie. You're looking for, you're like, your mind works to where you're trying to figure out what's going to happen next, and you're reacting to a scene. Whereas now that you know kind of how it turns out, you actually enjoy all the byplay, all the little things going on in the background, all the funny stuff that we've tried, that we've thrown in there. We decide this is the funniest stuff. And so you pick up on a whole lot more. That's how people are watching these games. I think twofold. One, you have athletes watching sports for the first time ever. Most guys don't watch sports. Most guys who play don't watch their own sport. They just don't, because they're playing their own sport. And if they're watching tape of themselves or their opponent. They don't watch TV copies of games. They don't sit down and watch. Like Derek Jeter is famous for never watching another baseball game, right? Mm-hmm. Ever. And now these guys have a chance to watch it. So for the athletes themselves, it's pretty cool. Like, they're actually watching, like, this is what a fan sees. This is what it's like. And some of the things that they forgot in games they played in. Or things about games that they didn't know that they just watch. Like, everybody else just watches stuff in highlights. We don't watch the actual games anymore. And these games are all, you've taken away the commercials and you sped them up. So you took away the boring stuff. The pregame show, the postgame show. It's just game. But the second part is, and this is as a sports fan, I think because we know the outcome, even though that's not in doubt, it's all the things that led to the outcome. Just like in these in Will Ferrell movies, you pick up on more. You're like, I totally forgot about that call. I forgot about this foul. I forgot that Rick Pitino who he chose to play and who he chose to sit, in the 97 game that was on yesterday. People forgot that Gordon Hayward missed a little runner on the possession before he missed a half-court shot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, he actually did. So all of these things, I think you pick up on when you're watching them now.
See, I think it's different when you're watching a sporting event versus when you're watching a movie to entertain yourself because hey, Caddyshack is on. I've seen it 1,000,001 times. I'm going to watch it 1,000,002 times because I get it. I know the jokes that are coming. When I'm watching a sporting event, I'm ready for the outcome. And if it's an outcome that I've seen already, I don't know that inherently I enjoy going back as much to having to watch it. Whereas if I'm looking to watch something now, give me a sports documentary because that's the big rage now, right? Give me a sports doc because I don't know anybody that I've talked to that says missing sports that said, oh, I watched the '96 NCAA championship game the other day, but instead they're telling me, you know what I watched? Sports doc I'm watching Cheer, and Cheer is so awesome. I have more people telling me that are watching than are watching the old games.
No, listen, I watched Cheer. I thought it was really good as well. You can do both. You got plenty. You got plenty.
Sure,
of time.
there is time to do that.
But
yes.
I disagree because here's the deal. You've been doing this a long time, so have I. But so you've watched all these games. You've watched them all. You actually watched them. Most people didn't. Most people are full of it. They don't actually. Oh yeah, I watched. You watch the game? Oh yeah, I watched it. They did not watch the game. They didn't watch the game. They didn't. Like all those Super Bowls from our childhood, where they were blowouts in the first half. Do you remember? I remember a couple of plays. Right? I remember the Marcus Allen run.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that when the Niners it was Timmy Smith or whatever who had over 200 yards.
Redskins,
rushing,
yeah.
Right? I remember bits and pieces, but I don't remember the games because I wasn't paying attention. You paid attention because it's been your job for how many years have you been doing this?
Oh, a long time now. 16?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm about the same in terms of how long I've done it. But I also can't say that I've actually paid as much attention to every game and every sporting event, whereas that's how you watch sports you're a sports reporter, national host, where you're watching every single play of it. I don't think most people have experienced it that way. And now they are because they got time. Right? One, there's no commercials to slow it down, and two, there's not any. They had nothing to do.
But again, are they going back to watch? Or are they just saying, "Oh yeah, no, I watched that Super Bowl"? Just
I
like
think
the
you'd
first
be
time
surprised
around.
at how many people, because they don't have anything else to do, are like, "Yeah, I'm gonna watch that game." Miles Simon is my closest friend in basketball, and he's an assistant coach for the Lakers. Yesterday, he's watching for the very first time himself play in the national championship game against Kentucky. He was tweeting stuff out. It was amazing. Bill Self, same thing. He watched, it was during the week, I think, he was watching their national championship game against Memphis, and he's tweeting as the game's being played, reasons he did what he did. It was amazing. It was an incredible way to, it was what's the show? Mystery Science Theater 3000. You remember that show?
Yeah.
I still, patent pending, trademark, right? I said, why don't we have this for sports? Right? Where you have a game, and then as it's being played, that's what CBS should have done, was have these guys in and stop it and have the coaches and talk about each play and what they're thinking here and why they're doing it. Instead, now we're getting on Twitter. It's great.
I'm rubbing off on you with the patent pending. I like that. Now make sure you say that. You can be able to make money on that. It's a pretty good deal. It's funny you say that because, you talk about watching that. Remember the first time that I did a radio show with Jalen Rose, right? And we were talking about, he had the documentary coming out on the Fab Five, right? It was coming out Fab Five. And we were talking about the game, and I had the box score of the game printed out. He goes, let me see. He says, I've never seen the box score. I go, you've never seen the box score of the Chris Webber timeout game? I said, you never seen the play? He goes, no, I just never. Let me see. He goes, oh, man, I had a terrible game. And he shot 6 or 15. He goes, oh, man, wow. I had a really bad. I didn't think I had that bad a game. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. He goes, yeah, it was just, And he's looking at all the different stats, and we get down. He goes, and that final play, too. And he bangs his hand on the table in front, and he goes, it's not so much about the timeout, but look at the play, how it set it up, right? Why does Chris Webber dribble the ball down the floor? Just do the whole stop, come here, give me the basketball. I'm the point guard. There's two of us and there's one of him. Right. Why are you dribbling the ball down the floor? And he's saying as he's looking at the box score and he's getting really animated. I'm going, oh my God, I feel like I'm back in history now, 20 years. This is back in probably 2010, 2011. I'm going back in time with him, watching this and going, oh, wow. Okay, and he told me, some other stuff about the game too, and about he was probably, if he was open right behind the arc, and if Weber had seen him, he was going to take a three, and that could have changed everything, and all kinds of stuff.
Yes,
going on.
everybody would. I mean, like that's kind of an athlete thing too, as everybody remembers. I would have shot it. I would have made it.
Well, he didn't say he would have made it.
There's
He said he would have
never
shot it.
guys like, I might have. I'm shooting 40% from three. But like again, take the '97 game, right? It's Rick Pitino, a loaded team, trying to win back-to-back championships. Forget about what Arizona, like people, again, when we look back at the Arizona team, you think of they beat 3-1 seeds in order to win the championship and all this other stuff. But the bigger part to me was two things. In the game, Lute Olson sat Michael Dickerson, who's his leading scorer, averaged 19 a game. He sat him because he was tight. He was tight. He was cold in the diamonds tight. And then the game went to overtime. Arizona was up 5 or 6, and they had Kentucky had 2 late threes to send it to overtime. Like those completely forgotten that they're down 3 and Epps steps into a 3 with like 11 seconds to go to tie the game. Like in the lineage of the great shots in NCAA history, like no one ever mentions it, right? Because they lost in overtime,
Right.
Or the shot that was hit before Jenkins hit a 3 after, if you remember, North Carolina hit a double clutch 3. Right, the lefty point guard. I don't remember his. Not even he was their best player. I don't remember his name.
Doug Gottlieb, college basketball analyst.
Yeah. So and then Arizona didn't score a field goal in overtime. It's all free throws.
Yeah,
all free throws. But these are things that you only pick up the second. You're like, oh, I forgot what was unique about that game. What was distinct about that game? So look, am I somebody that likes to go back? Because there are times when you go back and you watch some of the games, and you're like, man, it's like the Sabruder footage, right? The quality of camera work is not great. The replay is not great. TV has clearly gotten better. But Jim Nantz sounds exactly the same. I don't know how that happened. Like yesterday, there was the 97 game and the 2010 Butler-Duke game. Different analysts sounded exactly the same. I mean, it was exactly the same. It was really remarkable. But sometimes we build these guys up as they were great way back, and then you watch tape, you're like, yeah, they didn't really dribble with their left hand, and there was no three-point line, and basketball was kind of boring in the early 80s, So I get it that if you've studied it, it's not as good the second time. I do think for this short period of time where we have no sports, it's been good in its stead.